Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey. I am a knitwear designer from the southwest of France, and this is a podcast where I talk about all of my knitting creations. Hi, thank you so much for joining me for this new episode. I hope you're doing very well. You will notice that I sorted out those books. Well, only the ones you can see in the frame. Like, let's not get too excited, but yeah, it's making me lose a lot of space, but I just wanted to have a nod for the people who are teasing me over that on Instagram. So look, I did that. So yeah, I have an episode with lots of exciting things to share with you, so I'm going to get started right away. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything, feel free to look at that and jump ahead. I also put links to everything that I talk about, my the patterns and the yarn that I will be talking about, as well as links to my social media, my patterns for sale on Ravelry, Payhip and Lovecrafts, as well as my Patreon page, where you can go if you'd like to support this podcast and my work in general, to have an access to behind the scenes of my design work. So yay! I'm going to start with the design that I'm wearing, which is a new design that I just released on Ravelry and Payhip, and I am so excited to finally talk about this with you. It is the Lenore cardigan. So this is a raglan cardigan with a V-neck shaping and a colorwork motif on the body. As you can see, it's like a small geometric colorwork, which is really fun and easy to knit. And yeah, then you have the possibility to make the back of the hem longer. As you can see, there are some short rows which make the ribbing longer at the back. And the pattern also includes optional bust darts. Here I also, then you also have to pick up the sleeves, knit them in stockinette, and the neckband is then picked up and working 2x2 rib all the way around with buttonholes. And I used 4 buttons for my own body length. So yeah, this is a really easy to adjust in body length, in style. The colorwork design is highly customizable. Basically, as you can see, mine is worked with 4 different contrast colors. So you have this beautiful ochre golden yellow, this cherry red, this sort of deep burgundy, and then this green, moss green here. And so in the pattern you have several colorwork charts. You have one that is colored to look like my sample, to give you an idea. You have one that is with only one contrast color. And then you have one with symbols to color in. So basically, if you'd like to make up your own chart with as little or as many contrast color as you like, you can also arrange them in different ways. On my sample, I knitted with 3 colors per round on certain rows. You can see here, I have the 2 contrasting color here as well at the beginning. But you don't have to. If you only want to have two colors per round, you can arrange the design as you prefer. And yes, a good way to have. I have so many things to say. My brain is ahead of itself. A good way to have a fun colorwork without handling too many colors is to have a 1cc, but in a variegated colorway. That's really fun as well. And yeah, you can have a look at my testers versions to have some inspiration. And yes, so this design, so it's worked flat at the top for the v-neck, and then you cast on stitches to have a stick in the middle of the cardigan. If you have never sticked before, this is really beginner friendly. The colorwork also is really beginner friendly because it's so small, tiny, such small tiny motifs with barely any floats to catch. Basically, you have floats to catch sometimes here, but it also depends on how many colors you are using, so you can avoid that as well. And since it's on the body and it's straight, it's easier if you are a color work beginner. And I'm not stripping just for the sake of stripping. I actually just want to show you the inside of the cardigan. So I wanted to say, yes, you need to, we all need to relax about sticking. I use a method and I give instructions for like a foolproof stick. The fool being myself, because I like to do things in a straightforward and simple way. So the instructions that I give in this design are really beginner friendly. If you've never sticked, it's a good way to try it. Maybe 90% of my testers never sticked for this design. And as usual, people who are afraid of sticking, it was also my case. You're afraid of sticking and then you do it and you're like, that's it. Yeah, that's it. It's really rather impossible to mess up if you follow the instructions. And the ones I give are really simple. I send you to a video tutorial for the reinforcement, which is the one that I like to use, which is I like to do a machine seam, which you can see here, and a crochet reinforcement at the edge. And you have so many various videos online that can teach you how to stick. I also wanted to say, I highly recommend, whenever you do make a stick, to have purl stitches on each. Like, it's nothing revolutionary. This is how I learned to do it. But sometimes I see that people stick and they don't have a purl ridge. So basically, when you cast on stitches here at the center for the stick, the first and the last stitch of that stick, if there are purl stitches, it will make your life so much easier for several reasons. The thing is, if you are doing, you can see here that so this is ugly because I'm not a perfectionist and I'm gonna wear this cardigan closed most of the time. But you could sew a ribbon here to hide the messy stick if you prefer. I don't really care. But yeah, you can see perhaps that I seamed here with the sewing machine. And because I had that purl stitch, I could see exactly where to stay in line. It also makes it so much easier to pick up stitches for the neckband, because picking up stitches in the middle of a stockinette, it can be a bit messy. But if you have a purl stitch, you have a defined edge, so to say. So it makes it so much easier. And it also means that the extra fabric here of the stick, it folds itself on its own, basically. When the stick folds inside, when you fold it inside, it's gonna make some extra thickness, right? And if you don't have a purl stitch, like the fabric it takes to turn like this, it makes it extra thick. Whereas if you have a purl stitch, it will just flap itself a little bit more flatly, so to say. So yeah, make purl stitches on each end of your stick. This is what I give, I write down in the pattern. And yeah, so if you have never sticked and you would like to try, this is a beginner friendly pattern. Let me show you more of my floats. People are obsessed with wrong side of colorwork, and I would like to show you my colorwork blanket, because I always forget to show you and people keep asking me. So I knitted this colorwork blanket and I finished it a couple of months ago, and people keep asking me, what does the wrong side looks like it's some sort of big scary secret. It just looks like this, and it's like there's no, see, it's like, yeah, sure, this one, look, I can pull this one. But yeah, I just wanted to show you, because people seem to believe that wrong side colorwork things are like always awful and impractical. I mean, sure, if I would give this blanket to my dogs, maybe it would have a hard time. but the right side would also have a hard time, to be honest. But the problem with floats is if they're long and if they're like in an unpractical thing. For example, if you're making mittens for babies, yes. But I'm not a baby. Debatable, but that's fine. That's how this looks. It was short floats, and since I used the pure wool, it's sort of flattened itself. So my cat even goes on it sometimes, and no drama. But yeah, I just wanted to show it to you because I keep forgetting. So now that we are on the topic of floats, these are also short floats. Like you could make even shorter if you didn't use as many colors per round as I did. But yeah. This is supposed to be worn with a bit of positive ease. It's very easy to adjust. It's a very straightforward construction. Like I said, there's bust darts here if you need them. The reason I do bust darts like this is to prevent the cardigan from running at the front. This is especially troublesome with cardigan that you want to wear closed, I find. And yeah, it's just more practical whenever necessary to add a little bit of fabric here. If your upper bust and full bust is very different. So this is all explained in the pattern, and yeah, just another customization that you can do, much like the back of the rib, which you can see. It just goes a bit deeper at the back as well. And yes, so this is knitted in a sport weight yarn. This is knitted in Manos del Uruguay alpaca heather yarn, and so it's very hard to find in Europe. I'm not finding any retailer that stocks it, so this is a cry for help. If you own a yarn shop that can do wholesale, like you can sell, like it's a great yarn, okay? So I would really like for it to be a bit more accessible in Europe, but it's widely distributed in the US as far as I've seen. And I think you can order from Manos del Uruguay. I'm not sure. I wouldn't try it living in Europe with the customs. But basically this was sent to me quite a long time ago by the brand so that I could try out the yarn. And basically this is a blend of wool and alpaca. Listen, I often talk about how this is like my favorite combination ever. Basically, you know, if you want a really neat, smooth, classic looking colorwork, but you're not a fan of the typically rustic cord yarns, I highly recommend that you try yarns that have some alpaca in it. More wool than alpaca, say 50-50, 70-30. There are a variety of yarns, and this one is absolutely lovely because basically the halo of the alpaca will just smooth the fabric, and it's just fantastic. I really, really like this yarn, and I wish it was more readily available where I live. I'm just gonna leave it open a bit if you'd like to see how it is open. It doesn't even, like the neckband is wide enough that it doesn't, unless wind. But I live in a very windy place where you learn from a very young age to touch your hair as tight as possible and your clothes as well. So no one sane where I live will just go around with an open cardigan when it's windy. You're just gonna get parachuted downwards, basically. So yeah, this is how it looks like. And what was I saying about the yarn? Yes. You can use a variety of different yarns. You can check my testers versions, and basically any sport weight yarn will do. Then you kind of have to see, you can use some plump fingering weight or some light decay. It depends how dense you like your fabric at the pattern's gauge. But yeah, some people used Dereo Natura Iulis, Fonti Nimbus, Filcolana Perinilla is also a great one, as ever. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for this. I really hope you like it. I absolutely adore this teeny tiny fun colorwork motif, and yeah. So like I said, the pattern is now available on Ravelry and Payhip, and if you do like it, there is 15% off for the release on Ravelry with the code Lenore. It's just Lenore, which ever since I named this pattern and people have been talking to me about it, it's always wrong. It's always like Leonore or Eleonore, which are other iterances of that name, but it's just a simple one, Lenore, for the Edgar Allan Poe poem. So yeah, I just do it on purpose to annoy you. But yeah, that's it for the pattern release for this episode, and I'm going to move on to my works in progress, and I'm going to start with the tricky one to show, which is the Rococo Pullover by Sari Nordlund. So this is a personal project, and the, you know, lace yokes, they're very trendy at the moment, and the Rococo one by Sari Nordlund is my favorite of them all. Often I find that the lace motifs in these designs, they tend to be arrow or feather shaped and go like this, which is nice, but they, even though the lace is different, it all sort of looks like it has the same shape. And when I saw this one, the Rococo one, it was different, and so I really love it. It was my favorite of them, and I really wanted to make it, but I didn't have any idea of which yarn I could use. The design is knitted in La Bien-Aimée Corrie worsted, which is their homemade sort of yarn, which looks fantastic, but it's a bit outside of my budget. So yeah, I wanted to make that sweater, but I didn't know which yarn to use. And my friend, two of my friends, very nicely gifted me some Nutiden yarn. Well, one of them gifted me some of it, and then the other one sent me more of the same color just in case. And now, basically, I have 6 times too many yarn, too many plates. But yeah, they gifted me some Nutiden in this beautiful coral pinkish reddish shade. So Nutiden, if you don't know, it's like Plotulopi, which means it's an unspun yarn, and I never tried it before. I have some Plotulopi in my stash. I haven't knitted with it yet because I had an idea for a design and then I'm not sure anymore, so it's I'm thinking about it. But I never tried Nutiden, which is a bit softer than Plotulopi, but still a very beautiful woolly rustic wool yarn. And yeah, I never had Nutiden because they release it in collection batches every season, and you have to be there on the spot to order, and it's like at 5 AM on Sundays. And I wake up at 6, not 5, even on Sundays, but 6 is not 5, and so I never managed to get any. So I was very grateful when my friends gifted me some of it. And so it's my first time knitting with unspun yarn, and I don't know that I chose the right design for it, but I think it's looking really nice. So this is the lace of the Rococo, which is so fun to knit. I absolutely adore it. You know, it's just arranged in a funny way that is very interesting to knit. And you have the smoke stitches. Smoke. I'm trying to say it right. Not smoke, but smoke. Is that right? Smoke stitches here. And then the little arrangement, cluster, whatever, of bubbles, which are really fun. And yeah, it's really fun to knit. I absolutely adore this lace. It's on the yoke and a bit on the sleeves. I wonder if Sari would consider making other designs with this lace, because it's stunning. I love it. I don't know. Well, she shaped it so that it fits so well with the yoke, but I just really, really like it. And it didn't look like much until I did the smoke stitches. It just was a bit messy due to the yarn that I'm using. It has a, you know, I really like knitting lace in more woolly, fuzzy yarns. I think it looks really beautiful. But you need to have a lace motif that still has a good structure to it for you to be able to see it. And as soon as I did this and then this sort of shape, it really started looking really, really cool. You may notice that my ribbing is not seamlessly going into this design here. That is my fault. But basically I'm knitting size 3, I think. I cast on the stitches for size 3 and my gauge is probably not correct. I'm holding Nutiden double because I thought that would give me roughly a heavy DK to worsted weight gauge-ish. And if I have more ease, that's fine. I cast it on size 3 and the neckline was too big for me because of gauge reason probably, but also because of personal taste. I just prefer a closed neckline. So I undid that and I casted the stitches for size 1, which is still a rather, like, it's not mock turtleneck or anything. But I cast it on for size 1 and then I increased back to the size that I wanted to knit. Which means that, see here, this works well, but here it doesn't. And in the design, it flows purposefully, like it's well designed. It's not the design fault. But basically, I really didn't mind because since the yarn is fuzzy, and my hair is gonna be all over that part anyway. And again, not a perfectionist. I much preferred having a closer neckline, but I just wanted you to be aware that if you follow the design, it works well. I could have, I think, I could have done the math to make it work properly, but too lazy, and I didn't mind so much. And yeah, so my first time knitting with the Nutiden unspun thing, you know, it's interesting. I know, I am aware it's not going to unravel itself. I understand it's super strong once it's knitted, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I still have some primal instinct that is like, yeah, but still. It broke maybe 3 or 4 times. To be fair, that probably isn't the perfect lace to knit with an unspun yarn because you do have some intense manipulation of stitches, right? But it still works just fine. It broke as I was knitting the stitches. This is what I mean. Like sometimes I noticed that either I yanked it a tiny bit too hard and it broke and I have to undo it to reattach the yarns, or sometimes I noticed that one of the yarns, because I'm holding it double, sometimes I noticed that one of the yarns has gone away. And so within this I have at times quite a few stitches that are hanging on by not much. So yeah, but even though it's not the most convenient lace to knit with such a yarn, the thing is, I keep sometimes, when I'm slipping stitches or when I'm knitting, I often will tend to grab a thread from the stitches next to it, and so yeah. But it still is fine, that's what I'm saying. I do think it's much easier on a different type of motif or on stockinette. I can't wait to see when I'm on the stockinette body and sleeves. It's probably going to roll much smoother. But I do love how it looks. And it's really nothing too troublesome. I just hope that the places, especially with the bubbles, like the first row of bubbles, I had to sort of get the hang of not breaking the yarn. But some of the stitches around the bubbles are really not looking like they're super sturdy. See? Like what? Are you okay? Yeah. This one is going to break, isn't it? Ah! I don't know what I could do. Stop yanking on it. Might be a good idea. But, yeah. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Maybe I could, yeah, I don't know. If it ever does break at some point, I think the yarn is so grabby that you can probably just weave back some of it in. I don't know. But it does look good. It does look very good. And I really, really like that lace. I really do. So pretty. But yeah, this is a bit on a break because I have two big garments on my needles at the moment. I will, oh no, you fell. Stay here. It's fine. Big cable jumper, and having the two is kind of hard on my needles, on my hands. So I want to finish my cable jumper before continuing this, but yeah. Here's my story about taming Nutiden. Now, next up, I would like to talk a bit about my Advent mini design project. I didn't make much progress on it, but the thing is, I feel like for the podcast, I always just show you like the beginning of a project, and then when I show you again, I show it to you again, it's finished, and it's just silly. So I thought for once I might actually show you progress. So I'm designing a scarf, shawl, stole, wrap using an advent calendar of 12 mini skein, which is, like, you can see some of them here. I'm leaving them there because if I bunch them all in a bag, I think they're gonna unravel and it's gonna be messy. But this was a yarn advent calendar from Les Petites Potions, which is a French indie dyer. And this was the big skein in the lot. And I'm designing a wrap that can be knit with a bunch of minis or leftovers or whatever your fingering weight desires are. And so I made some changes to my plans. I think last time when I showed it to you, I had knitted this, and the beginning of this. And so the idea is that each color is going to have its own section with a different texture motif. I want to use simple textures but varied, and it's going to be a modular design, so that basically, see, I knitted this way, then I picked up stitches here and knitted this that way, and then I grabbed stitches again here at the top, and now I'm knitting it that way again. And initially, oh my god, it keeps grabbing. Initially, this was supposed to be the width, see? And I was supposed to continue knitting this way and this way until I have a proper rectangular wrap that is long enough to be worn. And the thing is, when you're designing a project like this, it's very freeing when you knit it because you don't have to plan for certain dimensions and certain amounts of yarn. But as I'm designing it, I still need to be careful of how much yarn I use so that people don't run out, and of the final, like, the size of the stole, that it's actually a wearable item. And so on my initial sketch, it was supposed to be like this, see? But then I noticed that the way I started, basically I didn't have enough yarn to make it super long on either end, and this was too wide. And what I should have done, if I wanted to keep it arranged like so, would have been to make shorter rectangles here, but longer, wider, basically. But I kind of like their shape now. I didn't want to have them be more narrow. So I changed a bit my sketch, and now basically this is going to be this way. And this is about the maximum width. There's gonna be a tiny bit more here. After I've done some sections there, a couple of sections there, I will pick up stitches here and make a smaller band here at the top, and then this will be the total width, and then I can continue this way. So basically my new sketch is this. And so if you can see, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the 4 is this one, and right now I'm doing the 5. And yeah, so that is now the plan. It's basically the same modular thing, except I flipped the center of it so that it's more a long stole rather than super wide but too short. So this way it should work. And yeah, so the sections so far, you've seen the garter stitch, you've seen these twisted stitches and garter rib, double moss stitch, which is really nice. This here is maybe one that is not as visible because the yarn is very variegated, but you can still see a little bit that I did some butterfly shaped floats thingy. I considered changing this a lot because, well, especially in the bad light now, it's not super visible and it's one of the more varied colorways. But then I thought, well, the goal is to have a design that you can use any leftovers and not overthink it, and it's still, you can still see it in real life, and it's still adding a nice fun texture to it. So I'm thinking go with the flow. And now the section I'm knitting now, basically I started doing a bit of ribbing, a bit of garter stitch, and then I'm gonna have some stockinette. So it's going to be stripes of ribbing, garter stitch, stockinette, etc, etc. And yay! So I still have no clue whether or not how I will make a border, because my goal was initially so to do this using the 12 mini skein and then pick up stitches on the long edges here with the big collar and make a lace edging. Yeah, I think I will still do it, but I don't know yet exactly what kind of lace edge I can do. But that's the plan. And yeah, really fun, still really fun to work, and so far really hard to explain until it's completed. But yeah, these stitches are on hold because basically they will be where the potential lace thingy happen. And yeah, the idea will be to knit one section every 2 days if you're using it for your advent calendars next year, or you know, any collection of mini that you might have, and if you want to use leftovers as well. Hey, I have one more project that I would like to talk about, and it is my cabled sweater. So I have been knitting on, you might have seen it here and there, the Saven sweater by Meghan Babin. And previously on the Yarnflakes podcast, I I told you that, so this is the back of the sweater, and last time I had knitted the back and one sleeve, and I was afraid it was going to be too small. Basically, I'm using a new to me yarn, which is Merino d'Arles by Katia, and it's a superwash yarn. And I'm doing cables, and I did swatch. I did. But as I was knitting on the big project, I was afraid that it wouldn't block like my swatch did, and I was afraid it was going to be too small. I was correct, in the sense that the project did block differently than my swatch, but in the opposite way of what I was afraid of. So I decided to do the smart thing for once, and I actually pre-blocked the back to check how it would block overall, because that's kind of the thing with gauges. It's like, it's nice to make a swatch, but what matters is that on your actual big project, the gauge is correct. And yeah, using a new yarn, superwash with cables, was not the best thing to do, perhaps. But I blocked it to check. And yeah, my swatch is not really accurate, because this is slightly bigger than I anticipated. Not by much though. So all is well. It will actually be a nice cozy jumper like I wanted. And so yeah, I just don't have I never want to block projects in the middle of knitting it, which is stupid, especially since this was a seamed project. So if I was blocking this, I could still continue knitting on the rest. So I don't know why I fiddled with it so much, but yeah, I blocked it. Now I'm reassured. I can see that it's going to be an okay size for me. And yeah, I just thought it was funny how I was like, it's going to be too small, and it's actually going to be slightly bigger, because even though I did make a big swatch, it's still fairly different when you're actually knitting on such a big garment. And yeah, I finished the second sleeve. I'm currently on the front, and I'm about here on the front, and so I'm going to do the raglan and the neck shaping. I haven't read the neck shaping yet. I've just seen that it says at the same time, so I'm like, oh god. It's fine. So far the pattern has been straightforward, and if you've knitted some sweaters, you understand the construction very well. I will just have to sit down and make myself some sort of Excel table so that I can tick on each row what I'm doing. But yeah, the raglan, and then shape the neck. Then I won't block the front and the second sleeve on their own, because I'll have to block everything together anyway. So what I will do is I will seam, work the neckband, which is a folded one, which I love, and then I will block everything together. Seaming will be nice and fun because it's just straight seams, and you have the slip stitch detail here on the seams, and so I'm going to seam, I suppose, here between the slip stitch and the garter edge that you can see here. And I like seaming straight seams. I don't like seaming curves. So seaming setting sleeves or drop shoulder like a circle, no. I'm not very good at it, and I don't like that. It's not always two things that go together, you know, being good at something and liking it. So there are things that I'm good at and I don't like them, and there are things that I'm not good at and I love them. Seaming a curve is something I am both not good at and not enjoying. But this is not a problem, because this will be straight. And yeah, like I said, I'm focusing on this because I really want to finish it. I only have to finish the front, like I said, and the neckband and things. And I really hope I'm gonna have it in a couple of weeks so that I can wear it. It's really cold here at the moment. All of January has been way colder than ever. So maybe I'll still get to wear this cozy jumper. And yeah, this is it for this podcast episode. I am finished with all the meaty content, and yay! You can find all of the links where to find me in the description down below, including my Patreon page if you would like to support my design work. So on Patreon, this is just another way for you to buy patterns, basically. You can subscribe for a certain amount. You can come and go, just come from 1 month, several months, leave whenever you want. You are not tied to a membership. And yeah, every month on Patreon, I talk about a certain topic, basically from the level 2, which is €5 per month. You have access to a specific video, which is a vlog, behind the scenes, or a technical discussion. And this month, the topic on Patreon is, well, appropriate for this. We are talking about yarns for colorwork. So basically, I try to discuss yarns that are suitable for a classic colorwork look. Basically, what are the type of yarn that make it easier regarding their fiber composition, their numbers of plies, their types of twist, treatment, etc. Yeah, all of the things that make a yarn very suitable for an easy colorwork experience if you want a classic look. And I also talk about what to do if you want to use a yarn that is not like this, that is not typical for colorwork, but you really want to have that smooth merino look, but you still want a nice colorwork experience. So I talk about how to compensate characteristics that are not, fiber properties that are not in alignment with a classic colorwork look. So these videos, they're recorded in French, but I subtitle them in English. And like I said, the rest of Patreon is basically a way for you to support my work, to buy 1 or 2 patterns for a more accessible price, as well as have access to test knits, and yeah, just be aware of the designs that are coming and things. So, and when you join Patreon, you have access to all the previous content for over 2 years now. So yeah, if you feel so inclined, I would be very grateful for you to have a look at it if you are curious. And in any case, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish you a very happy rest of the day, evening, whenever it is when you're watching this. And I will see you very soon with another episode. Bye!